All right, let's power up that vocab. We're going to be looking at some words you use every day, like when you talk about health, tech, or even the weather.
Yeah, it's funny how we use these words all the time, but maybe don't always like think about what they really mean or how they all fit together, you know?
Totally. Like, it's one thing to know a word, but it's another to really use it well and feel
Yeah,
confident, right?
absolutely. And that's kind of what we're aiming for with this deep dive.
Exactly. So we've got some great source material here, all about those everyday topics.
Right. And we're gonna go beyond just the dictionary definitions.
We're going to see how these words are used in real life and how they connect to bigger ideas, like those big picture things everyone's talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So, are we ready to jump in?
Let's do it. I think starting with health is good because honestly, who hasn't had that moment where they're like at the doctor and can't quite explain what's going on?
Oh, tell me about it. Like you don't feel good, but putting it into words, sometimes it's tough.
Yes. So mastering some key terms like symptom, diagnosis, prescription, stuff like that can be super helpful, even if you're not a doctor. You know what I mean?
For sure. It's like just knowing those words can make you feel more in control, I think.
Totally. So first up, symptom. We kind of all know what it means, right? Like you've got a cough, that's a symptom of a cold.
Yeah, but have you ever thought about how like being able to describe your symptoms really well can actually change the kind of care you get?
Oh, that's a good point.
Like let's say you're feeling tired. You could just say, "I'm tired," to the doctor.
Which, let's be honest, we've all done.
Totally. But if you can say something like, "I've been tired for weeks and I also can't focus," that gives them a much better starting point.
Yeah, it's like you're giving them more clues to work with, right?
Likely.
Okay, so then comes the diagnosis. That's the moment of truth, right? Where the doctor figures out what's going on.
Yeah, the diagnosis is like the name for the problem, and once you have that diagnosis, then you can start thinking about treatment and all that.
Okay, that makes sense. And treatment often means a prescription, which can be confusing sometimes, right?
Oh yeah, like how many times have you looked at that bottle and wondered, when am I supposed to take this?
Seriously, like twice a day. Does that mean morning and night or every 12 hours? And what about food?
Right. It's so important to just ask your doctor or pharmacist if you're not sure. They're there to help.
Totally. Okay, and then comes recovery, which everyone's recovery is different, right?
Absolutely. Like recovering from a broken leg is way different from recovering from the flu.
And even saying, I feel better can mean different things depending on what you're recovering from.
For sure.
Okay, so last one for health. We've got to talk about preventative, like preventative care, preventive measures.
This is a big one.
Yeah.
And it's not just about like taking vitamins or going for a walk.
No, it's bigger than that, right? It's about public health and policies and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Like think about the vaccine debate.
Ooh.
Understanding what preventative really means
Mm-hmm.
helps us see why vaccines are important, not just for ourselves, but for everyone.
That's such a good point. It's like preventive goes way beyond just washing your hands.
Totally. And speaking of going beyond, I think it's time to move on to technology.
All right, let's get techie. And this is another area where like new words are popping up all the time,
Oh,
right?
for sure. But there are some like core concepts that are really important to grasp, like bandwidth,
Yeah.
algorithm, that kind of thing.
Yes. So bandwidth, that's a word everyone throws around, especially when talking about internet speed. But what does it actually mean?
So bandwidth is basically um, how much data can travel over a network at once. Like imagine a highway. The wider the highway, the more cars can drive on it without traffic jams.
Okay, that makes sense. So if my internet is slow, that means I need more bandwidth, like a wider highway for all that data.
Exactly. And just like a highway can get congested during rush hour, your bandwidth can get strained if a lot of devices are online at the same time.
Gotcha. All right, next word, algorithm. Now this one, I gotta admit, I hear it all the time, but I'm not always sure I really get it.
Yeah, it's become kind of a buzzword. But basically, an algorithm is like a set of instructions that tells a computer what to do. Like think of it like a recipe.
Okay, so it's like the algorithm tells the computer how to bake the cake, so to speak.
Yeah. So, like, the algorithm for your music app tells it how to choose songs you might like based on what you've listened to before.
Oh, I see. And social media uses algorithms too, right? To decide what shows up in my feed.
Totally. And search engines and even online shopping sites. Algorithms are everywhere online.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. Okay, and how about gadgets? That's a fun one. All those cool devices we can't live without.
Uh, Gadgets. From smartphones to smartwatches to those things that
Yeah, the things that like track your sleep and your steps and tell you when to drink water.
yeah, exactly. Gadgets are constantly evolving, and it's interesting how some, like smartphones, become essential, while others,
Others just disappear. Like, remember those Tamagotchi things?
exactly, those were huge for a minute and then poof, gone.
So true. Okay, so gadgets are cool, but what about innovation? Like, what does it mean to be innovative, especially in tech?
Well, innovation means creating something new and valuable. It could be a
Yeah.
brand new invention or just a new way of doing something. Yeah,
So it's not always about like inventing a flying car. It could be about making an app that's easier to use or something.
exactly. And in tech, innovation is what drives progress. Think about how much smartphones have changed over the years.
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, last tech word, encryption. Now, this one sounds super techy.
It is pretty techy, but it's also super important for keeping our information safe online. Basically, encryption scrambles your data into a code that can only be unlocked with the right key.
So it's like putting a lock on your data so that only the right people can access it.
Exactly.
Okay, so encryption is like our digital bodyguard. But it's not just about keeping like my online shopping habits secret.
Right. It's about protecting sensitive information like your banking details or your medical records. It's essential for keeping things private and secure.
It's like I wouldn't walk around with like my bank statements taped to my forehead.
Yeah, no one would do that.
Exactly. So we need to be just as careful with our digital information.
Absolutely. And encryption is it's a key part of that. It's like a shield that protects our data from hackers and all those bad guys online.
Makes sense. Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground with health and tech. Ready for a change of pace.
Yeah, let's switch gears a bit.
How about something a little more down to earth, like literally down to earth? Let's talk about the weather.
Ooh, weather. That's a good one. Everyone talks about the weather, right?
Exactly. But do we really know how to talk about it like like a weather expert? Like,
Mhm.
imagine being able to describe the clouds or the rain with all those fancy terms.
I love that. It's like you can tell someone it's raining, or you can say it's drizzling, or there's a downpour.
Right. It's all about using the right words to paint a picture?
Totally. And it's amazing how much vocabulary there is for something as everyday as the weather.
So true. Okay, where should we start? What about overcast? I feel like that's a word everyone uses.
Overcast is a good one.
Yeah.
Basically just means the sky is covered in clouds. It's like a big gray blanket up there.
But overcast doesn't always mean rain is coming, right?
Right. Sometimes it's just cloudy for a bit and then it clears up.
Okay, so overcast is like the maybe rain, maybe not stage.
Exactly.
All right, what about drizzle? That sounds like kind of nice, like a gentle rain.
Yeah, drizzle is definitely on the lighter side. It's like a fine mist.
Like the kind of rain that doesn't really soak you, but maybe makes your hair a little frizzy.
Yes. And speaking of hair, let's talk about humidity. That sticky feeling in the air.
Oh, humidity, the worst.
It is pretty rough sometimes. So humidity is all about how much moisture is in the air. And it can make it feel way hotter than it actually is.
Yeah, that's why it's so hard to breathe when it's humid. It's like the air is heavy,
Exactly. And your sweat can't evaporate as easily, so you don't cool down.
which is why you end up feeling like sticky and gross.
Yep, pretty much.
Hey.
Okay, let's move on from sticky to windy. How about gale?
Gale sounds intense. Like, is that hurricane level wind?
Not quite hurricane level, but it's still really strong wind, like strong enough to knock over trees and stuff.
Wow, that's serious. Definitely not kite flying weather.
Nope. And finally, let's talk about the forecast. That's how we know what kind of weather to expect, right?
The forecast is like our weather crystal ball. It tells us whether to pack an umbrella or wear shorts or a coat.
Exactly. And these days, with climate change and all the extreme weather we're seeing, the forecast is more important than ever.
So true. It's like knowing the difference between drizzle and a gale could be the difference between a nice walk and a tree falling on your house.
Okay. Maybe not that dramatic, but you get the idea.
Definitely. It's all about being prepared and knowing what to expect, which is why understanding these weather terms is so helpful.
Exactly. It's like
I
it gives you a deeper understanding of the world around you.
I love that. And it makes me wonder what other everyday topics have like their own secret languages.
Ooh, that's a great question.
Well,
And I think you'd be surprised by how many there are. Like, think about cooking or gardening or music.
yeah. Or like video games.
Right. Every field, every hobby has its own special vocabulary.
It's like there's a whole world of words out there waiting to be discovered. And it makes you realize that learning new words isn't just about, sounding smart.
No, it's about understanding things better, right?
Totally.
It's about connecting with the world in a deeper way.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired. So, for our listeners out there, what's the takeaway from all this vocabulary talk? How can they actually put this into practice?
Well, I think the most important thing is to just be curious. Don't be afraid to try out new words, even if you're not sure you're using them perfectly.
It's like, don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Exactly. That's how we learn. And as you get more comfortable with language, you'll start to notice all those subtle differences in meaning.
Like the difference between saying I'm tired and saying I'm exhausted.
Exactly.
Those little nuances can make a big difference in how you communicate.
Right.
Okay, one last thought for our listeners. We've been talking about health, tech, and weather today, but what if you took this deep dive approach and explored the vocabulary of, like, your favorite hobby?
Oh, that's a fantastic idea. Imagine all the new words you could discover and how much better you could understand your hobby.
Right. Like, if you're into cooking, you could learn all the fancy culinary terms. Or if you're into music, you could learn all the different musical terms.
Exactly. It's like a whole new level of appreciation.
And who knows, maybe you'll even impress your friends with your new vocabulary skills.
That's always a bonus.
Okay, so keep those dictionaries handy and those ears open because there's a whole world of words out there just waiting to be discovered.
Happy word hunting.
And we'll be back next time with another vocabulary deep dive.
See you then.
So it's like encryption is like our digital bodyguard protecting our data from prying eyes. But it's not just about keeping our online shopping habits secret, right?
Oh, definitely not. Encryption is essential for like online banking, and
Mm.
secure messaging and just protecting all that sensitive personal information in a world where like David inches are becoming more and more common. Encryption is kind of like that digital shield that helps keep us safe.
Yeah, it's like the difference between sending a postcard and sending a sealed letter.
Yeah.
One's out there for everyone to see, the other's got that extra layer of privacy.
That's a really good way to put it. And as we rely more and more on technology for everything like communication and financial transactions, even healthcare, understanding encryption, I think it becomes even more important.
Totally. It's like we wouldn't walk around with our bank statements taped to our foreheads, so why should our digital information be any less secure?
Exactly. And it's a good reminder that technology is a powerful tool, but we got to use it responsibly and take steps to protect ourselves.
Okay, so are we ready for a change of pace?
Yeah, let's switch gears.
Let's talk about something a little more down to earth, literally down to earth. Let's talk weather.
Yes. Even something as familiar as the weather has its own like special language that can help us describe and understand, those atmospheric forces that shape our world.
Yeah, it's like we all know what rain is, but do we really know how to talk about it like a meteorologist? Imagine being able to impress your friends with your like deep knowledge of overcast skies and drizzle and humidity and gale force winds and like all the intricacies of the forecast.
I love that idea. Let's start with overcast, which just means that the sky is covered with clouds. It's like a giant gray blanket has been draped over the world. But overcast skies, they don't always mean that rain is coming. Sometimes it's just temporary.
Okay, so overcast is like the maybe maybe not stage of the weather game.
Exactly.
What about drizzle? It sounds so gentle, almost pleasant. Is it just the light sprinkle?
Drizzle is definitely on the lighter end of the rain spectrum. It's like a fine mist that gently settles on everything. It's the kind of rain that you might reach for a light jacket, but you wouldn't need a full-on umbrella.
Unless you really, really hate getting your hair wet.
That's true. Speaking of hair, let's talk about humidity. That sticky feeling in the air that can make even like a mild day feel so unbearably hot. Humidity refers to the amount of moisture in the air, and it can have a big impact on how we feel temperature.
So humidity is like the invisible sweat maker. It's not the heat, it's the humidity, right?
Exactly. High humidity makes it feel much hotter than the actual temperature because the moisture in the air makes it harder for our sweat to evaporate and cool us down.
That's why those hot, humid summer days can feel so oppressive. It's like you're walking through a sauna, even if it's not technically that hot.
Exactly. Now let's switch gears from the sticky to the blustery. Let's talk about gale force winds. A gale is a strong wind that can really pack a punch.
Gale sounds intense. Is it like hurricane level wind?
Not quite hurricane level, but still strong enough to cause some damage.
Yeah.
A gale can knock down trees and whip up the waves and make it really difficult to walk or drive.
So gale force winds are definitely not the time to try flying a kite.
Definitely not. And finally, Let's talk about the forecast, the all-important prediction of what the weather will be like, in the coming days or even weeks.
The forecast is like our weather crystal ball. It helps us plan our outfits and our outdoor activities and sometimes even our moods.
It's true. The forecast has become a really integral part of our lives, especially as we become more aware of the potential impacts of, severe weather events.
And with climate change, bringing about more extreme weather patterns, it feels like the forecast is even more important now than ever.
Absolutely. Understanding the language of weather, it helps us stay informed and stay prepared for whatever Mother Nature throws our way.
It's like knowing the difference between a drizzle and a gale could mean the difference between a pleasant walk in the park and, a wind-blown disaster.
That's a great way to put it, and it highlights how even like the simplest words can have some pretty significant implications in different situations.
Okay, I'm feeling pretty weather savvy now, but is there anything beyond these like basic weather terms that would really make me sound like a weather expert?
Oh, absolutely. There's a whole world of fascinating weather terminology out there. For example, have you ever heard of a microburst or a derecho?
Those sound pretty intense. Tell me more.
So a microburst is a sudden, powerful downdraft of wind that can cause a lot of damage similar to a small tornado. And a derecho is a really widespread, long-lived windstorm that can travel hundreds of miles and bring damaging winds and heavy rain and even tornadoes with it.
Wow, those sound really serious. I'm
And
guessing those terms aren't going to come up in casual conversation very often, but it's definitely good to know what they mean.
exactly, and it's a reminder that language is constantly evolving to reflect our changing understanding of the world.
So even something as familiar as weather has these hidden depths of vocabulary waiting to be explored. And it makes me wonder what other everyday topics have their own secret languages, you know?
That is a great question. I think you'd be surprised how many everyday topics have their own, unique set of terms and concepts. Like, think about cooking or gardening or sports or music. The possibilities are kind of endless.
It's like there's a whole universe of vocabulary out there just waiting to be discovered.
Ugh.
And it makes me realize that learning new words isn't just about expanding our vocabulary, it's about expanding our understanding of the world around us.
That's a beautiful way to put it, and it highlights how language is not just a tool for communication, but it's also a tool for learning and for discovery and for connection.
It's like we've gone from decoding those doctor instructions to like deciphering the mysteries of the atmosphere. Who knew vocabulary could be so adventurous?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how much depth there is, even those words we use all the time, and that's what makes this so interesting.
Right.
We're not just memorizing
We're
words.
getting these new perspectives.
Exactly.
But let's bring it back to our listeners for a sec. What's the takeaway from all this vocabulary stuff? How can they actually use it, you know?
I think the key is to approach language with a sense of curiosity and playfulness.
Mm.
Like, don't be afraid to experiment with new words. Ask questions, even make mistakes.
Yeah.
That's how we learn.
It's like trying on different outfits. Some words will fit perfectly, others you might need to adjust a little, and some you might just be like, nope, not for me.
Exactly. And as you get more comfortable with language, you'll start to notice those little shades of meaning, those nuances that can really make a difference in how you express yourself.
So it's not just about sounding smart, it's about communicating better and being a more critical thinker.
Exactly. And remember, language is always changing. New words are being invented. All words are getting new meanings. And the way we use language is always shifting to reflect, society and how it changes.
So it's not like you reach a certain level of vocabulary and then you're done. It's an ongoing journey.
Absolutely. That's what makes it so exciting. There's always something new to discover.
I like that. Okay, any final thoughts for our listeners before we wrap up?
Hmm. Well, we focused on health, tech, and weather today. But every field, every hobby has its own language. What if you took this deep dive approach and started exploring the vocabulary of your interests?
Ooh, that's a great challenge. Imagine like unlocking the secrets of cooking or music or even like your favorite video game.
Exactly. It's a way to deepen your understanding and, connect with other people who share your passions.
Awesome. Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our vocabulary power up. We hope you've enjoyed exploring these everyday words with us.
And remember, language is powerful. Use it wisely, use it creatively, and most importantly, never stop exploring.
Keep those dictionaries handy and those ears open, folks, because there's a whole world of words out there.
See you next time.